Hey there, I'm Sarah A. Chrisman, the author of The Tales of Chetzemoka, and today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of having a personal library. If you're here already, I probably don't have to tell you about how amazing books are. I don't need to tell you about how every book is a conversation with its author that goes on for days, or that no Hollywood blockbuster will ever really match up to a beloved book, no matter how many millions of dollars Hollywood throws at their special effects. You guys are smart and cultured enough to know all that already. No, what I'm here to talk about today is how much everyone benefits from having a library of their own to cherish and explore. For the purposes of this discussion, when I say that everyone should have a private library, I'm not talking about a grandiose cathedral of learning, or even a full room dedicated to books, although I've never met a true book lover who didn't at least want and dream of those things. Today and right now, when I talk about a private library, I'm talking about a private collection of physical books that you can hold in your hands, press close to your heart when they move you, and put on a shelf. Now, strictly speaking, the shelf itself isn't necessary, but it does help to keep things organized. Besides, books are wonderful friends, and they should be displayed as proudly as you display pictures of your human friends and animal companions. Sometimes people with the least space to call their own are the most conscious of the value of a personal library. In his famous work 2 Years Before the Mast, Richard Henry Dana described how dearly the sailors he knew loved their books, even though the only space each of them had to call his own was a sea chest, which also had to contain his clothes and all his other belongings. If you stop to think about it, books don't really take up space, they add to it, because each one is a door into an entirely new world. Real books aren't merely doors, though. They're also maps. There's something I've mentioned before in another video, but it bears repeating. Humans are three-dimensional creatures, and we evolved to live, move, and learn in a three-dimensional space. This is a three-dimensional object. It has a front, a back, a top, and a bottom, and a lot in the middle. And if you've spent enough time referencing things in physical books and going back to look them up again, you've probably noticed that you don't just remember what you read, but if you're familiar enough with the work, you generally have a rough idea of where in the book you read it and where you can find it again when you go to look it up again. Now, this happens on a much bigger scale in physical libraries, whether they're your own library or whether it's a big public library. People don't just remember what information they found, they generally remember where they found it and where they can go looking for information they haven't discovered yet. They just go to a different part of the library. Now, the reason our brains evolved to access information this way and record information this way, it's actually really fun because it goes back to the days when we had to find and then remember the best berry trails and the routes for hunting the fattest food animals. The survival of our species depended on not just finding the information in the first place, but then being able to go back to that same physical space and find it again, especially with the berries and the plants that were growing. Animals move around, berries less so. So we got very, very good at linking information to place. And when we got civilized enough to start writing things down, those old skills transferred over. And we still link where we found something to the knowledge that we found, which is, I just love that. I think it's really fun. Now, the reason a lot of people have a much harder time remembering things that they read online or in another digital format on a screen is that with a piece of digital information, the brain doesn't get that same opportunity to orient itself and map out the knowledge the way that it does with a physical text. Public libraries have a lot to recommend them, but it's very important to have your own collection of books to read and refer to anytime you like. Gabriel likes to tease me about what he calls my "I have a book for that" syndrome. Whenever we have guests over, there will inevitably come a point in the conversation where someone will bring up something I've read about. Then I'll jump up from my chair, exclaiming, "I've got a book for that!" I'll run and get the book, show it to our guests, and then launch into a discussion of how the book relates to our conversation. I'll usually then point out passages that I think are particularly relevant and that I want our guests to think about when they go home. I couldn't do all this if I didn't have my own collection of books ready at hand. Unlike a public library, your own library is never closed to you. Your own library is open on holidays, open through bad weather, and open regardless of any number of factors that can close a public library or limit access to it. The times when public libraries are closed or restricted are often exactly the times when you need books the most. Owning your own books gives you the power over the knowledge they contain. Bear in mind also that public libraries get rid of books for a lot of different reasons. As for digital collections and anything online or in the cloud, they're a lot more ephemeral than people realize. Things in digital collections get deleted all the time and no one even notices them disappear because they don't leave an obvious hole. It's very easy for digital information to get deleted, either accidentally or on purpose, and the last thing you want is for a book that's become important to you to suddenly vanish. Books are knowledge, and knowledge is power. Own the books, and you own the power. Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a nice thumbs up, and remember to give your friends a nudge about adding my books to their own personal libraries. Happy reading!